So, what are your thoughts on the Great Filter?
I don't think there is one. I just think the Omega level wipe out or enslave other civilizations they encounter.
Why can't we become codependent and build for a better intergalactic society?
Or maybe we can interact with aliens and share knowledge and build a stronger colony.
Hmm. But that makes me wonder what will happen when we encounter an alien civilization? Will they be willing to communicate with us? Or will there be some sort of an intergalactic war?
An intergalactic war? That sounds cool. But many just fantasize about meeting aliens one day. But a few think further. So with that, I welcome my panelists to talk about the same.
So, see, like if we somehow find life and we become a type 1 civilization or so, and we find life somehow on the somewhere. Okay, so what do you guys think will be the effect on life that we find? Like, what will be the effects if it is more advanced, and what will be the effects if the life is less
Okay,
advanced?
so essentially, I'd like to jump in here. That will basically, like, if we do end up finding a life that is less advanced than us, so that will depend upon the level, the type of civilization that we find. Because if we encounter one that is of a very low kind, so that so we might see them as resources to be exploited, like how we do rats and bunnies nowadays. And if they're advanced enough, like somewhere close to what, how, and where we are, then they might be considered a pure threat, and us as humans having a huge deal about striving and being on top and winning, we might just fight them off. The same may happen if we find one that is more advanced than us to us. And another thing, the cute factor might weigh in as well, like how we consider puppies, how we perceive puppies, and how elephants perceive humans. We might find them cute and help them nourish further. And we're going back.
Archita, see, what I'll tell you is we do find them cute, but what do? We put them in the zoo and we lock them up. So,
No,
what do you think will happen
you
if the
don't
aliens
you
find us
don't you
cute?
don't lock the puppies up in a cage. Like,
Right,
you don't
right,
put them in a zoo. We help nourish them, right? We
right,
take
right.
care of them.
Because
But
there are dogs out there.
before we buy them, aren't
Yeah.
they like
Let's just
okay?
assume we, helped adopted a stray dog. All right, Naman. Let's not get too.
Let's assume we are super cute. Let's assume we are the
Yeah.
ultimate cuteness on in the
Okay.
universe.
What are you saying?
That's
Or
hard to
what
believe.
if we actually get to
How to
implement
That
Pokemon in
is
reality?
inherently
major doubt.
flawed. That is inherently flawed because these puppies are
Exactly.
much cuter than us. That is inherently flawed.
I don't know, man. I
And
just
plus,
think
like,
that
according to the book, according to the Sapiens book by
But
this
a
guy,
major fact is that
this
Yuval
guy.
Noah, Yuval
You are,
Noah,
you are,
Yuval
I
Noah
know
Harari,
you
Yuval
are,
this
you
Noah
is the
are,
Harari.
evolution of dogs.
you are.
According to
There
Sapiens by
were
Yuval Noah Harari, like, there at one
multiple of
point coexisted 7 species of humans, right? So, but we annihilated all the other six. And so,
Huh.
if we've done this before, why not again? Why could we not do this again? We could just take over if we find another life form. We could just annihilate them.
Excuse me, there were species of human beings.
Yep, they were.
Exactly. That's what you've done.
Yeah.
Suprit,
What?
There were around 7
Huh.
species of human beings coexisting at the same time, and we annihilated each and every one of them till Homo sapiens was the only human species surviving. Let's
We
go.
feel
Okay,
proud about
so
ourselves.
there was a World War Z a long time
I
ago.
mean,
Remember what happened when Europe invaded North America?
A very real no homo.
No, it's the fact that we are not the lucky one to be survived. We are the one who can only evolve.
Okay,
I think
the
like
fact that I don't know there existed 7 human species is a proof that I'm looking into space too much and not looking down on ground.
Not looking back.
And if you actually look back on the ground about human history, like humans are a bigger threat to the existence of humans than extraterrestrial
That,
life.
yes,
that's
that
true.
is
See,
it.
they were talking about advancement scale and all. See, what's ironical is there was a man who had a mustache like a small one, just like Charlie
Are we
Chaplin.
talking about
He was
Hitler?
responsible
Okay,
for
yes,
most of the destruction. I know I'm not taking names. I'm not
sure.
taking
See,
names here.
Sarcasm
we are
from
getting
the
off
inside.
topic now.
Who are you
Off topic we are
afraid
getting.
of taking names?
Just
He who
in case
must
we have
not be named.
international
No, man,
audience.
चलो
comes
चलो
up
off
with a
topic
very
चल
nice
रहे हैं राजू.
metaphor to give an idea of who the guy is. Muskan, are you talking about
What's the irony? What's the irony is that one man who destroyed the most of the human history, like he created most of the human history in destruction, and just coincidentally another nation which was opposing it designed the Kardashev scale. See how peaceful it is, na? The Soviet
How
Union
peaceful to
creating
destroy
the
human
Kardashev
beings.
scale, and
I
Do
had
you
to
think
really
there's
And
restrain
anything
myself to
peaceful
and
not
about
make a in
Soviet
Soviet
nation
Russia
that
see,
joke.
making a civilization scale by destroying civilization.
yeah, that is what I'm talking about.
But then again, the most advanced scientific revolutions took place at the time of war because you are forced to innovate,
Yeah,
right?
in fact, during the space race, which was a part of the Cold War in the late 20th century, basically the USSR and USA were in a race to see who gets to space first, who gets to have space advancements first, and that resulted into a lot of funding into the space agencies of both USSR and USA. And I think that's the period we saw the most progress, and that's why most books written in that period, talk so grandly about what would happen 50 years later in the 21st century, because like given the current pace they were going in the 20th century, we would have reached much greater heights. But then the Cold War stopped, the USSR collapsed, and people stopped giving a shit.
Even in USA, I mean, the USSR collapsed definitely, but even in USA, they didn't pay as much attention because it wasn't relevant to political needs and not important to.
Precisely.
moral of the story? Bring back USSR.
Okay, guys, I have a question that is particularly for Priyam. As he's so much interested in beings living outside our planet. Priyam, what do you think? Like, if we do inhabit Mars, how would humans evolve, or like how would they be different from ones actually existing here right now?
See, now this is a very cool thing ki we are living out of planet, going and leaving our native planet. See, this feels interesting, but there are many impacts on our life, whether it is a psychological, whether it is physical. See, the first thing which will gradually make us inhabit to Mars, it's the fact that the Mars just has 38% of gravity, and the latest hypothesis over it which said ki it will not take more than a week to be Martians. It's because ki now your body is tuned up to live in 38% of gravity, and when you will be going for some reasons going again to Earth, now your joints are now not that much tuned up to feel the more force, and that's why with weak joints the body can disintegrate. So basically the physicist said ki it will take you not more than a week to be a Martians, and along with the environment of Mars is very different from Earth. It is full of carbon dioxide, and it is full of radiations. If you are now your body is so much complex and so much advanced that it can adapt any type of environment. So now your body is toning up to less sunlight, to more radiation environment, to more carbon dioxide. Although you will get oxygen, but still your environment is carbon dioxide. And the rovers which are moving on the Martian land, they learned out of it that you have to dig 16 feet down the Mars, and the reason behind it, down the 16 feet, Mars has 6 layer soil, and radiation cannot penetrate beyond 6 layer. So if we have to stay out of radiation, we have to dig 16 feet down and live our whole life, or live our hub, or make our hub there. Now this is some.
See, I have something to ask. I've read about this thing in some research that if we are sent to Mars, like we'll grow bigger eyes, and the reason is that we get lesser amount of sunlight there. I mean, can you elaborate it a bit?
You got a point. It's the famous hypothesis given ki if you are exposed, or if you are not exposed to much sunlight, you are being placed in a room where the sunlight is very low, or where the light is very low, your pupil dilates to take more light. See, now we all know that Mars didn't get much sunlight, so it will take you more than 100 to 200 years to see that physical change in your body of getting your eyes dilate or getting your eyes bigger than the usual size. But yes, the generation which will born on Mars and the generation which will be brought from Earth has a major difference. The generation which will born on Mars has different physical properties, and definitely they can dilate their eyes. So it's the fact ki yes, it can be possible ki we the face we draw, the creepy face ki big head, big eyes. It can be the possibility in the future, but it will merely take more than 100 to 200 years.
So you are saying that my dream of becoming or maybe finding Jadoo is not stopped after all.
It will, but it's not that ki you will say ki someone is coming and saying dope. It will not.
Okay. I get your point.
You can find something with big eyes, but you can't find something saying.
Okay, I got your point. See, now when you talk about this finding life and all, do you guys think that there has been intelligent life already existing, but we haven't been able to find it? Is there any
I think
chance?
that's a very strong possibility. So, thinking about how we have been searching for signals by maybe intelligent life forms more advanced than us, we mostly look at radio waves detections. We mostly try to detect radio waves that might be coming from all corners of the universe, maybe hiding or encoding a signal, right? But the thing is, even barely 200 years back, we did not have this technology at all. Like, we had not developed radio as a communication technology. So, what if Earth was inundated by a wave of radio waves carrying a bunch of messages, say 300 years ago, and we simply did not have the technology to detect them? I think this is something which is very viable. At the pace technology is going, we are finding and developing new communication technologies, at a very rapid pace. And I think it is very, very likely that a civilization more advanced than us probably has a more advanced way of communication, which it can broadcast to, much larger distances across the universe. So I think we should really ramp up our communication and communication research and all that, so that we can actually be in a position to detect these waves whenever they hit us, and maybe even broadcast them to the universe so that someone might find our signals.
So, Suprit, just to draw an analog, you are saying that it is possible. Like, I'll just draw an analog straight away. You are saying that these aliens that we are trying to find are parents trying to talk to a maybe 3 or 4 month old child.
Yeah, that's actually a good analogy. That's actually a good analogy. But it actually is worse, because for 3 or 4 month 3 or 4 month child can actually detect the fact that someone is trying to speak to them, even if they don't understand it. But with the current technology problem we face, it probably could be the fact that we simply do not know that we are being inundated by a whole bunch of signals, from outer space by an intelligent life form.
Yeah, that brings me back to what Suprita. See, all these criterias that we've developed for, finding life and finding these habitable zones is the fact that we are searching for only carbon-based life forms, like only the things which look like us, or maybe which are made of the same thing that we are made up of. See, I'll tell you. See, there were some conditions that existed on Earth a long time ago, which kicked off like the process of life. So it's not wrong when I say that life can be based on other elements, and it is not at all wrong when we say that our criteria, what all we are searching for and how we base our search on it, is wrong. Because in the near future, or maybe like a long time after we start looking into the space, when we come across life which is not carbon based, we would not simply be aware that it is a living thing, or it is living or not. We'll not simply be aware.
Yeah, in fact, the theoretical grounds for non-carbon based life are pretty sound. I mean, theoretically, it does make scientific sense that there should be, not, I think "should" is the wrong word. There could be like non-carbon-based life. It's just that we haven't found them yet. So this hypothesis doesn't hold much ground right now.
Look, Manoj, I got something for you.
Is that ET?
Yes, at least a softer version of it.
Thank you so much here.
I don't know when you will be able to meet E.T. in real life, but for now, he shall keep you company.
True, someday in the distant future, maybe we both will get to meet ET, but for now, all I know is that we shouldn't stop looking.